We are just one day away, a day away from real football. Week 1 of the 2022 NFL season is upon us, and over at the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel, we have been helping you with your toughest start-sit decisions all week long, and we're going to help you all season long. Today, we've got the Stokastic projections, the same projections that have won people millions of dollars over on the DFS side. They're powering our projections for fantasy football as well, and now we're comparing it to consensus and seeing some real value. So these are the value-based, the projection-based start sits to help you out and win week 1. Let's get at it. Let's first dig into some must-start running backs here. We're going to start outside the top 12 with a running back who plays on this Thursday night slate. That's Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills, a huge potential shootout to start off the 2022 season. Two of the most explosive offenses in football, and while their defenses are good, I think their offenses ultimately are better. And we're looking at an every down player who had massive opportunities down the stretch for the Buffalo Bills in Singletary. Multiple top 5 performances from week 14 on last year, playing every snap in postseason play. And in the preseason, we basically saw the same thing as well. With the first team offense, the main running back by far was Devin Singletary. Yes, James Cook will have a role. He was a second rounder for a reason, but still, even with the Rams being tough against the run, 4th in yards per carry last year, I think we're going to see Singletary have plenty of options in the receiving game and has a huge touchdown potential here as well. In schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed, the Rams are actually just league average against the running back position. You want a running back with 60% opportunity share on one of the best offenses in football and one of the biggest, highest Vegas total games of the week? Devin Singletary is your man. Another must-start running back, James Conner. We've been banging the drum for James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals on the Fantasy Football channel all offseason long. He scored a lot of touchdowns last year. Yeah, that's true. Will there be some regression? Probably. Will there be opportunity regression? Probably not. The game environment against the Chiefs in this potential shootout, one of the best of the Sunday slate, if you're not counting that Rams and Bills game on Thursday. And against KC, who was only so-so against the run last year, really just poor on defense, I think Conner is going to be able to find some holes. The receiving game is going to be there for him in a way that it wasn't last year when Chase Edmonds was on the field. He should easily outpace that 2.5 receptions per game average that he had last year. He was 7th in fantasy points per game even without that receiving upside, and he was top 15 in expected fantasy points per game. So I don't think the regression is going to be there too much. And by the way, Kansas City, bottom 3 in the NFL in yards per carry allowed. If Arizona is able to control the clock with James Conner, maybe they have a chance to pull off the upset in week 1. And one more must-start running back for me. It's in that same game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, it's a little bit more nerve-wracking for me because Clyde Edwards-Helaire, one, can't stay healthy. We're not sure if we're going to see Jerick McKinnon or Isaiah Pacheco, but I think ultimately Edwards-Helaire is the lead back in one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. Sure, they're going to pass plenty in Kansas City, but Arizona was 22nd in the NFL in yards per carry allowed, 19th in points per play allowed, and 24th against the running back position in fantasy points. He was way more injured than we realized in 2021. He was 165 pounds, and now he's up to his playing weight, the clear-cut lead back, and could see 17 to 20 touches in this high Vegas total game. He's just 27th in terms of expert consensus rankings. Stokastic has him in the top 15 easily, especially considering the game environment. Start Clyde Edwards-Helaire with confidence. Now on to the running backs I'm looking to sit. We'll start with Eli Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. Wind and rain are expected in Chicago for this Game 1 matchup with the San Francisco 49ers facing the Bears. The Bears aren't interested in pushing the tempo offensively, and neither is San Francisco. They're one of the most creative teams rushing, San Francisco is, and they're likely to win this game, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of plays, a lot of volume in order to do it. Pace influences volume, and volume influences scoring, and when you don't have scoring, you don't usually have fantasy scoring. The TD upside, sure, it's pretty good for Mitchell considering they're likely to win, as I said, but Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel, and now the rushing upside of Trey Lance means there's a lot of vultures on the field. This is a high variance play. I do think that there's ceiling potential here for Mitchell, but a player who struggled with injuries in preseason and is notoriously finicky with running back touches from year to year, I'll pass on Mitchell in week 1 and be pleasantly surprised if he's the lead back going forward. And another mid-round pick I am trying to bench this week, Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. Took a precipitous fall in average draft position over the course of the summer. And how can you not go pass heavy if you're Las Vegas, right? You've got Adams, you got Renfro, you got Waller. Your opponent is the Los Angeles Chargers, implied for 28 points, which means that you're probably going to be playing from behind and needing to pass a lot anyway. Los Angeles was 9th in points per play allowed last year and 11th in yards per rush attempt allowed. So I do think that they're a pretty strong defense, although JC Jackson doesn't look like he's going to play. I don't think there's a real chance that Las Vegas uses just one running back as well. I think with the way Adam Gase usually uses the running back position, as we've seen for years in New England, they've used a running back by committee. We could absolutely see Amir Abdullah and the rookie Zamir White getting legitimate touches. There's a small chance they just run the wheels off of Josh Jacobs this year, but I really don't think that's the way the Raiders are going to play football in 2022. I think they pass. I think they use an RBBC, and that means Josh Jacobs might be a disappointment from week 1 on this year. To the wide receiver position, we'll start with Marquise Brown as a must-start wide receiver. Now at the Arizona Cardinals, after getting traded from the Baltimore Ravens, he's in a high game total environment, a crazy high expected pass total from both teams, which means the play total should be very high, and he's the #1 receiving option for the Cardinals so long as DeAndre Hopkins is not on the field. They've had injuries there too. Zach Ertz isn't 100% as well, although he's expected to play. And when you spend first-round draft capital for a wide receiver, you expect them to perform, especially in the situation that the Cardinals find themselves. Kansas City was 24th in yards per pass attempt allowed last year and 16th in points per play allowed. Not scary at all. An 8-target floor is there for Marquise Brown, and he could easily see double digits in this spot. And boy, does he get open. He was 9th in the NFL in win rate versus man coverage last year. That's going to be Kyler Murray's best friend. Expect him to be peppered with targets in week 1. And if you're looking for a deep league option as well, check out Rondale Moore. He's pretty much free in many draft formats. He might even be on your waiver wire, and especially while DeAndre Hopkins is out, I think you could see 5 to 8 targets weekly from Rondale Moore. Remember, Arizona tends to spread the ball out in the passing game more than people think. Hey guys, if you haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy yet, now is the best time to check it out. They still have so many great options in the preseason draft field, and they've got you ready for week 1 as well. So many ways to play best ball fantasy football. You just draft your team and win huge prizes. They've got a $10 million prize pool in the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. Just draft your team and win. And now we are offering a special offer from Underdog. You get a first match deposit up to $100 when you use promo code Stokastic, STOKASTIC. Another wide receiver I'm thrilled to start in week 1, Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, crazy high implied point total for the Chargers, 28 points, and Las Vegas was only okay against the pass last year. 7th in yards per pass attempt allowed, but they gave up way more points. Bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Williams, who was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football through the first 5 weeks in 2021, always has ceiling potential. He was 14th in targets last year, 16th in fantasy points per game, and now he's not just a contested catch guy either, not just a jump ball receiver. He averaged 3.1 yards after the catch per target, which was 14th best in yards after the catch last year. His 9 TDs is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the true ceiling potential. Yes, there's going to have to be a few things that break right for him to have a true breakout season, but I think he's got a ceiling game in him in week 1. Start him with confidence. I also think Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings is a must-start player in week 1. He's really good at getting open in the end zone, and I want players who get touchdowns. While I really hope the volume increases as well with Kevin O'Connell, a much more pass-focused coach coming into the Minnesota Vikings system, I think that you just see an offensive explosion for Minnesota in the passing game this year. You're going to see more than 7.3 targets per game. You're also going to see Jefferson and probably KJ Osborne's targets per game increase as well. But Thielen no longer has to rely on just touchdowns, which, by the way, could just happen again. He was 37th in targets, 23rd in red zone targets, and still ended up 14th in fantasy points per game. Yeah, he's 32. he could fall off the age cliff, but I'm not betting on it. The Packers were 19th against wide receivers last year. The matchup doesn't scare me at all. Welcome to the new look Vikings. The first wide receiver I'm trying to sit this week is Darnell Mooney. Yeah, you spent a mid-round pick on him, but you can wait till week 2. San Francisco is top 12 in yards allowed per pass attempt and in points allowed per play. They were 6th best against the wide receiver position. And while I think the volume will be there in general this season for Darnell Mooney, I think the San Francisco defense and the secondary is good enough to shut down a #1 option on the Bears. A team that is implied for less than 17 points in Vegas right now. It's going to be a long day for Bears fans. I do not expect Justin Fields to make Darnell Mooney a #1 option. I am trying my best to keep him on my bench for week 1. And honestly, the same thing goes for wide receiver Allen Lazard of the Green Bay Packers. He's got an undisclosed injury that popped up late last week, and it doesn't actually look like he's at 100% guaranteed to play now for the Packers. This wide receiver core has a ton of question marks in Green Bay, and I realize Aaron Rodgers can elevate someone to #1 status, and they paid Lazard like they expect him to be that guy. Can he really do it? The undisclosed injury doesn't sound incredibly serious, but it doesn't sound great either. It's a relatively high Vegas total game, but I think we often will see the Packers just dumping the ball off to A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones and expecting to win that way. And what if Sammy Watkins finally realizes his potential, or Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs, one of these rookies, steps up as well? There are a ton of question marks with Allen Lazard, to the point where even if the matchup is okay, Minnesota just league average against the pass, and Aaron Rodgers way better than league average as a passer, I'll wait and see for 1 week. If you're looking for a tight end that's probably sitting on your waiver wire that I would start over some top 15 tight ends in average draft position, look no further than Gerald Everett of the Los Angeles Chargers. For many of the same reasons I was touting Mike Williams earlier in this video, Everett makes sense as well. I think Everett is going to have many weeks where he's the 4th receiving option on one of the most elite passing offenses in the league. He's not going to be ahead of Keenan Allen or Austin Eckler or Mike Williams, but there's still going to be plenty of opportunity value as that 4th option. And if the TDs get there for him, he could easily have 15 fantasy points in a game if he catches 2. Las Vegas was bottom 12 against tight ends last year, and while that's variable from year to year, I do think we see Las Vegas focus on the wide receivers and the running backs, leaving a potential opening for Everett over the middle. The 28-year-old has way above average athletics, 75th percentile speed score, and 90th plus percentile burst score according to playerprofiler.com. With Las Vegas focused elsewhere defensively, I think Everett anytime TD at +170 is a really savvy bet if you're looking at the sports book. Check out OddsShopper for all of the best bets in the NFL every single week. And on the flip side of the tight end position, here is that mid-round tight end that I'm sitting in week 1. We're going back to that Chicago-San Francisco game, and I am not playing Cole Kmet. If I'm not playing Mooney, I'm not playing Cole Kmet either. That's really how it is with this wind and rain expected in this very, very low total game. Could he catch a touchdown? Sure. But is he going to have 8 or more targets? I honestly can't see it. We have him ranked closer to tight end 20 rather than the tight end 12 consensus rank we're seeing around the industry, and that is just too rich for my blood. We don't need a tertiary option on the lowest Vegas total team and the lowest projected play volume team of the weekend. Oh, by the way, San Francisco, 8th best against the tight end position last year. And finally, I'll leave you with some sneaky starts in 2 quarterback leagues. You probably don't need to go here in 1 quarterback leagues unless you, I don't know, made some crazy trade or had a crazy draft, or maybe your league has some crazy roster settings. If you have some and you want some advice, leave a message down in the comments. I'm always happy to reply. We try to see every single message and give you our best time and response. But check out these quarterbacks who are probably available late in drafts or even free on waiver wires. I like both of Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones in this Miami versus New England week 1 matchup. Let's start with Tua Tagovailoa. 5th highest game total of the week. Dolphins implied for a really healthy 25.5 points in Vegas right now. New England's getting over 21 as well, so the shootout potential is way more than you would think for these two typically defensive defensive-minded teams. It's make or break year for Tua Tagovailoa as well. This divisional matchup should be a strong indicator of how the season's going to go. A big discrepancy in the win totals for these two head coaches. Mike McDaniels, of course, making his head coaching debut, but I think Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and even Mike Gesicki, who has gotten a little bit of flack for not blocking like they want him to in this new scheme, I think they are going to be pass heavy. I think they are going to meet their Vegas total, and I like Tua Tagovailoa as a streamer option in 1 or 2 quarterback leagues. And Mac Jones is not far behind him as well. Miami defensively, if you just look at the metrics, they're probably worse than New England, although there are some big question marks in New England's secondary this year. But I think Mac Jones, if he can overcome the preseason problems that we heard all about during training camp and during preseason games, I think he might be able to have a better season than many expect. I heard the rumors. I know it didn't go well, but I'm still betting on Mac Jones, who had a well above average rookie season, to figure it out. He's got weapons on the outside, 2 solid tight ends. Not a bad play as a quarterback too. And finally, Carson Wentz of the Washington Commanders. We're not going to have a lot of times where Washington is a home favorite this year, but here we are against Jacksonville, the same team that Wentz and his former Indianapolis Colts choked against to end the year last year and ruin their playoff hopes. He has a little bit of a redemption chance this year, and he's got weaponry, right? Terry McLaurin, new first-round receiver Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas has been activated, gadget player Curtis Samuel is back on the field. Remember him and Jacksonville. They were not good defensively. 25th worst defense in 2021. And while they added playmakers like first overall pick Trayvon Walker, don't expect them to become a defensive juggernaut anytime soon. There you have it, guys. Our top starts and sits based on the Stokastic projections, comparing it to consensus rankings. If you got no one else in the same projection range as someone who we said to sit, don't worry too much about it. As always, play your studs. And remember, variance is a thing in fantasy football. Someone can always catch a touchdown, even if it's their only target of the day. Until next time, I'm Matt Savoca from Stokastic.com. We'll see you guys later.